So I am filming in my daughter's room today and it is very pink in here, so hopefully that's not too distracting. Hey guys, it's Kelsey and welcome to my channel. So today I am going to be sharing with you a little bit about Apologia's Swimming Creatures of the Fifth Day. So a little bit of a story really quickly. This is what we plan on using for science this year. I had fully planned on doing Apologia's chemistry and physics with my children because I have an upcoming 8th grader and an upcoming 4th grader. When my boys saw this cover, I had purchased this on eBay, it was a good deal, and I just wanted to have it. They were like, can we please do that one? They did not realize that the chemistry and physics was actually also Apologia and a part of the Exploring Creation series. So when they found that out, they both decided they would rather do chemistry and physics. That makes me feel a little bit better because I feel like that's going to be a little bit more age appropriate for my 8th grader, but I do want to share some ways that I was planning on adapting this to work for a middle schooler. This is the older edition. These are a lot easier to come across on, eBay's, thrift stores, buy, sell, trade websites on Facebook, things like that. They are going to be a lot less expensive. Now, what is the difference between the two? The biggest difference that I have noticed is just that the information is a little bit more updated, look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, if you will. So that's a little bit about what the inside of it looks like if you have never seen Apologia books before. I also got the notebooking journal. This is for the older kids, so I think it's from 4th grade to 6th grade is what Apologia is designed for. Now, what I did not realize is that the older books of the human anatomy and the chemistry and physics is actually part of what is in the junior high books for Apologia. So that makes me feel a little bit better knowing that the information from those books is actually already in the junior high books. Okay, I hope we took care of that. I am going to leave a link down below from somebody that I watch here on YouTube myself who actually shows the inside of both of these books, talks a little bit about the differences. She has used the older books for a really long time. I am very new to Apologia, so I don't want to say, a lot of information or give the wrong information. I'm simply just sharing what I have found in my experience with them. So, with that being said, here is what the inside of the notebooking page is like. Now, if you are like me, I was very turned off by Apologia because of the look of them, which is also what turned me off from Heart of Dakota for a long time. And you guys know I absolutely love Heart of Dakota. And after finally using Apologia, I really do like Apologia, and I see why it is such a popular curriculum for science for homeschoolers. So I want to share with you, mainly you can go on YouTube or Google or wherever and find so many people giving reviews and flip throughs and everything else. And like I said, since this is an older edition, it doesn't really seem like I really need to go over it because a lot of people are probably going to be getting the newer edition, and so the information is just a little bit outdated, right? So what I really want to focus on in this video is how I was going to make this work for an 8th grader. Now, my 8th grader is not neurotypical. He is probably not at the maturity and, learning capacity wise, probably not your average 8th grader. So while I do want to push him and motivate him, I also have to remember where he is at developmentally and cognitively and all of those things. And I just really feel like that this level of Apologia is an okay place for him to be at in 8th grade. If you have a middle schooler that is very into science, is, wanting to go to college, kind of has their future already planned out, probably would not go with this plan necessarily. Not that there's anything wrong with what I'm going to share that we're doing, but I think you probably could have them do a higher level of science that would meet their needs a little bit better. But if you have a child like mine who does struggle a little bit academically, with life in general, and you have a younger student that you also want to combine the two, I think that this is a really good strategy to do. So the main ways that, well, first of all, I made a copy of the schedule. So this is the schedule. This is the first 9 weeks of the course. And you're basically spending 2 weeks per chapter. Now the chapter starts on page 1 and it ends on page 17. So you're spending 2 weeks to read 17 pages. We did Heart of Dakota last year, which used land animals. They were doing it every day, but they were reading, I would say, probably 4 or 5 pages. We got through the land animals book in probably, it was less than half of a semester. It was like a quarter of the year. So we got through it fairly quickly. I did not feel like it was too quick paced or anything like that. I felt like it went just fine. And so my hope was to be able to combine these two. Now it does incorporate different things. It has notebooking, it has try this, which is kind of like experiments. It's got projects, it's got vocabulary crosswords, different things like that you could incorporate. And for me, there was only a few things that I wanted to incorporate. So we were definitely going to come at this at a bit of a faster pace. I also ended up finding on Teachers Pay Teachers, someone had created these. Now these are technically considered quizzes or tests that go along with these, but they have them for almost every Apologia book, I believe, and they're based on the older Apologia books. So I think you could get the first chapter for free. So if you wanted to try that, I will link it down below. But essentially the first one is matching terms to their definitions. The bottom is true, false. Then you have fill in the blank. Then you have draw a line to each animal for the correct category. And then you move on to the next lesson. So really you only have 2 pages for these. Now, as far as the Apologia notebooking, you're going to have a notebooking page. Now this is just what I printed out. The notebooking page for that, you're going to be doing surface currents and freshwater versus saltwater. Then you have the abysmal animals, and then over here, clearly it got cut off, you have the zones. Then there is review questions. Here's a vocabulary crossword. There's just quite a few different things that you can pick from. And for me personally, we have been doing the notebooking thing and all of that for the past couple of years. But the older my son is getting, the more I really see a need for him to be going back. A lot of people would consider this busy work, but for him, I think that this really triggers recollection and being able to find information, being able to comprehend information. I think it's really going to help with his vocabulary and things like that. So my plan was to have my younger student do more of the notebooking and more of the vocabulary crossword and things like that. My oldest hates crosswords anyways. So probably have my upcoming 4th grader do more of the notebooking, and then have my upcoming 8th grader do more of this type of stuff. So he would have to go and see what each of these words mean and find, correlate more of what we did in public school, right? So I think that that is something. I also found something else on Teachers Pay Teachers that I will link down below that is kind of a mix between the two. It's kind of a little bit more notebooking, but also goes a little bit more in depth than the Apologia notebooks do. They were just a little bit or a lot more expensive. Honestly, if I had not bought the journal, maybe I would have considered buying those, but I had already had the journal, so I did not want to do that. Something else I was going to have my 8th grader do was I was going to have him do animal research for every 6 weeks. We do 6 weeks on, 1 week off. At the end of the 6 weeks, I was going to have him choose an animal that he wanted to further research. And so this is a rubric that I had ChatGPT help me come up with. And this is the rubric for how I was going to grade it. And then this is the required slides that he would have to do. So he would have to have a title with the animal name and his name, the classification, or what kingdom of species they go into, the habitat, the physical characteristics, diet and predators, interesting facts or unique behaviors, their conservation status, and then bibliography and sources. And I was going to have him use Google Slides to create these. So this is kind of twofold, right? They're doing the research, they're learning, they're doing deeper dives into the learning. It's interest-based, so he could kind of pick whichever animal that he enjoyed learning about that 6 weeks, but it's also helping him really do a research project without forcing him to do a written paper, because he is a reluctant writer. That's something that we're really going to push him on this year before he gets into high school. But I think doing something like this is perfect for him because he's very visual, he's very artistic and creative, and I think that this would be something that he would actually really enjoy. He loves getting on Canva and creating different things and things like that. So I think that that would have been something perfect for him to do. This could honestly be used for things for a lot of the Apologia books. So for, the land animal books and the birds book and, just all of those different books would be perfect because it's just animal research, right? And so I have a few ideas for the chemistry and physics, but I'll kind of save that for that video. Along with that, I was going to have him read a few books. Now I only picked up a couple, because he's also doing extra reading for Biblioplan. He's doing some for language arts. Didn't want to overwhelm him, but I did pick a few books that were marine biology based that I wanted him to be able to do. So first I got Ice Whale, the author of My Side of the Mountain, which I think a lot of us have heard of, which is a good book. So this is what it looks like inside. And I just kind of searched marine biology books for teenagers. And so this is one that came up and it had good reviews. This is another one. This is by Rachel Carson. This is The Sea Around Us. This is this is written more for adults. This is got smaller text, nothing an 8th grader or, middle schooler can't handle. But this is going to be obviously a little bit different than what most of the Apologia books would recommend. I also got him 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So this one's quite a bit longer. I also got my upcoming 4th grader the Classic Starts version because he always sees his brother's books and then wants to read them. But they're just a little bit too long and for him, so yeah, that's what I had for them to kind of be able to use. Something else that I was going to plan, y'all went flying, sorry about that. Something else I was going to plan on incorporating was this Encyclopedia of Animals by DK book. This just has very realistic pictures and things like that. Is there ocean animals in here? Yeah, there is. I'm not crazy. There's ocean animals in there. And then this is from a few years ago when we did marine biology unit. I think my oldest was in 3rd or 4th grade at the time. So it's been a while since we've done marine biology, but this is what we use. Now this is something probably more for my 4th grader than my 8th grader, but that's just something that I was going to incorporate as well. So that is essentially what my plan was, to be able to adapt that. And I think that this plan could work really well for a lot of the Apologia books. I know some of the Apologia books, like particularly the astronomy and things like that, are written more towards those like lower elementary grades, but I think a lot of the ones that are written for upper elementary would work just fine for middle schoolers if you're able to add a little bit of a deeper connection to them, have them go a little bit more depth in their research and their reading. And so this is something that I had totally spent weeks planning out and researching, and then my kids were like, hey, let's do that instead. So now I've been spending the last week figuring out chemistry and physics. So it is what it is. As long as my kids are learning science and enjoying it, and we are kind of somewhat following a, line. We haven't really done anything with chemistry and physics in, oh my gosh, probably 5 years. So it's definitely time that they do it. And so we're excited to do that. But I will plan on getting that video out soon. Hopefully this video was somewhat helpful to you guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye.